So we're going to shift the agenda a little bit. What's going to come up next is James. Anthony's presentation is still downloading from Sri Lanka. We're fortunate to have a 10 gig link to the internet thanks to being based in the university. So for us, uploading, downloading generally isn't a problem unless, well, as you saw, we had a hiccup with Skype. But from Sri Lanka, things are a little slow, so bear with us. So we're going to move on to James. You good?
Disappeared on me.
While James is getting set up, there was a question that popped up in the feedback section on the live stream, and it was asking about developer resources and sponsors challenges. So if you go to, on the front page, developer resources, either scroll down or just go down a couple of turns and you'll see developer resources, click on that. All the sponsors and resources are there. Some have set challenges, some have not. So they give you basically the freedom to do whatever you want in terms of a hack. So I hope that answers the question that was asked there. With that, filler, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Right. Short cable, so I'll be here rather than walking around the stage. Yeah, so I didn't appreciate that cloud was a rude word, so I did try and go through while the previous speaker was going and do a search and replace, but I couldn't really think what to replace it with, so I think I still have cloud there. So I founded TruePhone, I'm CTO, and I started it because I thought that the internet was going to come and revolutionize GSM, and also I happened to not have any coverage at my home, so I figured that if I had some internet protocol stuff, I could use Wi-Fi or something to give myself coverage. And in fact, even today, well, it's a decade since I founded the company, I still only have coverage. Usefully, the Google Dot exactly pinpoints the only place on the farm where I have coverage, any coverage actually, which is on the top floor of and it's actually my bedroom. So we became a GSM operator to sort of solve this problem, and what we do today is that if you have the problem that you're international and the folks here are all international, you travel, you have friends abroad, lots of different languages here, you end up carrying many, many SIM cards, pocket full of SIM cards, and we thought that's a bit daft. And so what we give you is one SIM, one bill and one voicemail that works on a flat tariff in 66 countries around the world, and in fact, probably a few more in a few weeks' time. Right, and so that's a pretty cool thing. And we give you numbers in 8 of those countries. So we're a fully formed operator in 8 of those countries, and those numbers are quite cute because they have a property called Smart CLI. So if I phone you in America, so I can have 8 numbers on my SIM, right, or 8 numbers in my service. So, and if I phone you on your American number, my American number will turn up. And this solves problems like the taxi driver problem. So if you're in New York, you order a taxi, a limo service or whatever, they'll need to phone you back. And they will not phone your English number. They are not going to type +44 into their phone, right? So the nice thing is when you phone the taxi service, your American number turns up. They go, sir, yeah, we'll phone you as soon as the taxi's there. You don't have that feature, you don't get picked up. Or you have 2 SIMs and you carry multiple devices. What happens when we give our product to people is they approximately double their usage and their bill goes down about 30%. So, and of course, what actually happens is their bills for roaming goes down massively because they usually phone us when they've just had a £1,000 roaming bill from going over to New York. So we have a lot of very happy customers, and they tend to be this sort of international trading company. We have the Netherlands and so on, so there's a lot of apparel and so on gets built in the Netherlands, shipped out of Hong Kong, and so we've built up a really kind of cool customer base in that way. So what do we have to do to get there? I mean, most of the people, or many of the people here, are not GSM operators. They're over-the-top operators or internet-based operators. So I just give you a feeling for what it's like to be a GSM operator. Now that sounds very kind of fluffy and emotional. I just came from the Consciousness Conference in Finland, And in Western culture, we assume that humans are conscious, and maybe great apes are conscious. I think there's a recent case in America that says they are, and that everything else is basically probably proto-conscious or non-conscious. But in Eastern cultures, they assume that the entire universe is conscious, and the consciousness spreads out to the corners of the universe and every quark and atom. And so we had a fairly long debate about whether tables are conscious. So I think it's reasonable to ask about what it feels like to be a GSM network, since it's a fairly complex thing. So the first thing, of course, is we set out to be this sort of over-the-top GSM network, an MVNO, and certainly for us, we weren't able to do that. So we did actually become a full MNO, and we bought a network in North America in Montana. It's the entrance to Yellowstone Park, Yellowstone, I should say, which is where all the dinosaurs come from, and that's the T-Rex that greets you as you come in. And 14 cells gives you something the size of a small European country. I would say Wales, it was probably South Wales. So it's a really big physical network, but only 14 cells. When you look at going abroad, more internationally and taking this network international, what we did then is to distribute the network a bit. You don't really want to try and build a network where if I am in Sydney and I phone you in Melbourne, the call goes all the way back to London and all the way back out to Sydney, right? You'll end up with 600 millisecond delay, it'll be dreadful, you'll have no customers. So we built this quite distributed network which keeps all the traffic local. And so we've built a widely distributed GSM network, so thousands of SMS connections, hundreds of interconnects, and so on. This is not really anything more than a mobile operator does, right? You look at it and go, yeah, so what, James? That's what AT&T does, that's what Orange does, that's what Vodafone does. I mean, this is nothing new. But what we did do is we put all of the control in just one stack. So all of the 8 countries have the benefit of a single internet protocol stack, but we avoid tromboning all the media and data back to that stack. So it's quite cool in that way. We also had to solve this ton of problems. There are a ton of business problems you have to solve if you do a full GSM operator because of regulations and all sorts of things. So things like know your customer, taxation is unbelievably complicated, emergency calling, intercept, all sorts of stuff. Right? So you have a really, really complex system to build. Okay, and so how does this relate to sort of TADHack? Well, we think there's a bit of a problem with TADHacking. And I'll try and sort of state that problem and give you the solution. Well, a solution, okay? So the problem is that the barrier to innovation is high. If you want to go and, certainly if you want to get into GSM land, you're going to need to do all the things that I did that took me the last 9.5 years of my life to do in terms of interconnecting with things. So even if all you want to do is change the world, you've got this enormous job to do before you can get to the point where you change the world if you are playing in GSM. So you need large specialist teams just to keep everything running. You have to learn an alphabet soup of stuff, and you actually have to kind of sort of implement it, and you have to become a GSMA member typically to be able to get access. It's not like the internet where you just publish your website, get some record, fill it, and it just sort of auto ripples out. I mean, James Bodie and I phoned every mobile operator in the world to get our SMS filled twice. So that was 1,400 phone calls that we did over a month and a half, 2-month period. So it's a big effort. Meanwhile, of course, as a network, we have a problem. So I have to answer the question that Alan told me that I'm answering, right? So why are developers interesting to networks? Well, the economic problem for a network, or the interesting thing about a network, is it consumes an enormous amount of capital to build a network. They're highly capital intensive. So what happens is your money, black line, goes extremely negative. However, once you start filling the network, it goes positive very quickly and they become incredibly profitable. And you know, if you just look at the market capitalizations, top 10 companies in every country in the world, 2 or 3 of them will be mobile operators. So they're just dominating this capital value. They generate a lot of money. But the problem for any network is filling it. And the thing that fills it really is interesting, new, innovative services. So certainly from our point of view, we want people to come and help us. Now, we did experiment ourselves James ran a bit of a skunk works a few years ago, and he recorded some mobile phone calls for banks. And that actually ended up becoming a cornerstone of our business, and we now record mobile phone calls for 6 of the 10 top money center banks. And that was primarily because we've got a single IP network. So it's very easy to get into that network, cut out the SIP VoIP feed, send it off to a box to be recorded and reliably record it. To do that in a traditional GSM operator, absolutely fine, you can do it. You just have had to do it 8 or more times. So that we were able to do that. And what we'd like to do is to be able to fill our network with more things like that. So what we'd like to do is to lower the barrier to entry to our network, maybe to other people's network as well, but just being selfish to my network. And you can look at the examples, Google AdWords, right? That made it very, very fluid to place an ad. You could just get out your credit card, place an ad, and be in business. You no longer had to sort of spend a month negotiating with an advertising salesperson, all that sort of annoying stuff. So we want to try and see if we can get a fluid way of getting into our network, and the objective of that is to take the investment you need to do to innovate in the GSM space from this massive sort of investment that we've done. In fact, that's sort of like our talk, and I think if you look out the window, it is actually over there. So we're in land of the TruePhone talk here. And we want to get it down to so one developer with his WebRTC stack and his computer can change the world and take advantage of the massive kind of capital investment that we've made. So we've been working with a bunch of open source people over the last 6 months or so, and we have an open source framework that we've built. And I guess that comes with 2 things. So one of the pieces of that is an API specification for getting in and out of it, and the other is actually a network specification. So if you do actually want to build some part of the network yourself, we have that all specified out. So you can build it, you can go and get Camellia for IMS, you can go and get whatever, Matrix for some messaging, the Matrix people here, and so on. And you can build your system and only have to do what you want to do. So if you look at the cloudy blue cloud thing, those are the sorts of things that you're able to do inside the cloud-based, Alan, telco-based, telco infrastructure hosting solution-based, coined new phrase, thing. Including, if you want to, you can do some authentication, although in general people are going to use the underlying MNO, TruePhone, to do the authentication because it's a pretty difficult thing. So we can give you a SIM, and you can then get access to as much or as little of the stuff as you need. It's a bit like, I don't know if anyone's published a book on Create Space. It's a bit like going into that and bringing up all the things that you need to do to there. You can host it in the cloud, or we can host it for you. And we've specified all of the various APIs that we think you need to do to get in and out of it, which is a bit boring, but let me sort of go through what it sort of does as a chain. So what you need to be able to do is get and ship SIMs. So you need to be able to get them and ship them and send them to places. Really, if you want to do really interesting things in telco, you want to be able to get the signaling. You want to have the signaling switched out to you so you can do stuff and give it back. Now the important thing is if you actually ask for signaling, if you don't get back to the signaling in time, you will brick your phone or your SIM. Typically, for example, if you're given all signaling from a GSM network and you don't respond to the authentication commands correctly or within a certain amount of time, the roaming networks on which you're on will assume that your SIM is dead, and they will mark your SIM dead, and you have to do a SIM swap to get it back very often. So it's a real nightmare scenario. Obviously, if you want to rate the stuff yourself because you're doing something interesting, that's fine, but we will obviously rate it for you because we want to know how much money you're spending. And the typical thing people want to do is to fork or copy out the media or data. So give me all the phone calls, give me all the media, because I'm going to translate it from one Nigerian language into another Nigerian language. There's 14 languages there where business is done, very high demand for real-time language. So give me the audio feed from my mobile phone. I will pipe it into something like Google Translate or Microsoft Translate or many other things, pipe it back, and then I'll ship it off to the other person. And then I can have a nice business where if I want to trade up to a real human being doing the translation, I can do it. There's all sorts of interesting business models. Not something that, I'd love to build it, but it's not something I'm going to build, right? You need to be steeped in that culture and language to build those things, so we need developers who can build things that are very kind of local. And then give me access to cool stuff. You know, can I have access to your IMS feeds and things so I can do all those cool things? So that's what we're doing, and I think it's up on the OSCF GitHub, and we'll sort of talk to people a bit more about them. I think there's some hacks going on with some parts of it on our table, and James will show you what we're doing or not doing, so that would be really good. And then since I was at a conference about the future last week, I thought, you know, I like to speculate about the future. It's sort of what I do. And so where are these APIs going to go in the future? Well, I think 2 TADHacks ago, I gave a talk about how human beings were basically broken. And so I think the obvious thing is that we're going to start building APIs and primitives to fix the things that humans are bad at. And so I'm very much in that we're in tool use land now. You know, we pick up our phones, we're using a tool. It's a very sophisticated tool, but it's essentially the same as hammering a nail in. We take action, it does something. When we stop taking action, it stops. We come back, the nail's in the same place. You know, it's a tool. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to evolve to a bit more agent-based stuff. And I think we need to sort of solve the problems that humans are bad at. So face-to-name recognition, you know, names and faces. Where's my stuff? I've lost my stuff. I can't remember what I was supposed to be doing today. How on earth do I get to this show? I used James as my virtual agent this morning. Sorry, James. It's quite torturous. And intentionality mapping, right? You don't communicate voluntarily in general, right? Other than phoning a girlfriend, your mom, your wife, or sort of to have a chat, generally you communicate to take action. You want someone to do something. You want to get something done. You want to achieve something in your life. And so what you ought to really do is build applications that are around intentionality, what you're trying to do, and communication is a byproduct. Today, we build tools that do communication. So I think that we'll move that. And so what will that mean to our lives in the future? Well, any time that you work with an assistant or an agent or a secretary or whatever, you become very friendly with them, right? That's a friendship relationship. A tool relationship is a very kind of, you know, hammer and nail. I mean, you might love your fiberglass hammer because it's a really good hammer, but you're unlikely to have a relationship with it, I hope. And so I think that what we're going to have is this bizarre thing that you're going to evolve a relationship with your network and your devices. You're going to start to be friendly with your mobile network. It's going to start helping you. It's going to be very important whether your mobile network is empathic with you and sends you to the right restaurant or the right, you know, because it's going to do things for you that it has agency for you. So finally, thank you very much indeed. I'll take questions in a moment. My standard plug, I wrote a book, Communication, Creativity and Free Will, which you should read, it's really good. And I'm going to do a farm hack in the summer, so we'll put out an email on that at some point and you can all come to the farm, which has got fibre to the field and do some interesting hacks there. So thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you, James. Do we have any questions?
And I'll test. Yes, that's working.
What does the API look like, and why didn't you adopt something that already existed, whether a standard like one API or something that someone like Tropo has already developed, or Telestacks or anyone else?
Well, we wrote down all the list of all of the things that we wanted to do, and one API certainly has a very small subset of them. And I didn't personally look at your one, I'm terribly sorry, but some people did. And I don't know, you may find that they have inherited some of the features of yours. And if you want to contribute to the project and sort of say, I think you should rename this because this would be much better, then that would be welcome. But we were giving some really quite low-level access to the network, and that's not something that someone's done before, so there wasn't really any prototype that we could go to and say, give me signaling, give me this, in a safe way. So, you know how it is with developers, they kind of go and do their thing, really.
So there may be little bits of Tropo hidden away. Any other questions? If not, just like to highlight that James very sort of quietly gave us a world-first announcement in terms of a telco open sourcing its whole network API infrastructure. Nobody's ever done that.
That's
in
correct.
The telco space. So I think as we finish off, a round of applause for what I think is a world-leading announcement. Thank you so much, James.